All right, let's see how compliant this group is. Would everybody please stand? All right, let's see. All right, would you please sit down? Okay. I want you to know by attending today, you are officially an IRECian. So we will refer to you that way throughout the day. This is the first time that IREC has done a summit on workforce development, and let me tell you, it could not be more timely. A dramatic surge of growth in clean energy jobs is about to happen, and I think you'll view today as kind of the starting point as you look back on making sure that those are quality jobs, those are equitable jobs, and that there are workers to fill those jobs. And so to start it off today, it's my pleasure to introduce the keynote panel, Vision 2030, Trends Shaping the Clean Energy Workforce of the Future. Our panelists are going to discuss not only the industry and the workforce that they expect to see in a decade, but their hopes for how the industry and workforce will evolve to meet climate and equity challenges. And remember, you can get more info on the bios of our folks that are going to be on this panel at the app. But let me introduce, to start this, our moderator for the panel, IREC board member Trenton Allen. Trenton is the managing director and CEO of Sustainable Capital Advisors. At Sustainable Capital Advisors, Trenton has financed a wide range of infrastructure projects: water, renewable energy, wastewater, energy efficiency, and many other types of projects. Trenton, would you come up, please? All right. And I'll ask our other panelists if they would begin to come up here as well for this panel. One of our speakers is Carla Walker-Miller. Carla is the founder and CEO of Walker-Miller Energy Services, one of the largest Black and woman-owned clean energy companies in the United States. Virtually, we have Darnell Johnson. Hi, Darnell.
Hello, everyone. How are you doing?
Darnell is the CEO and president of Urban Efficiency Group, Illinois' first native, minority-owned utility implementation and sustainability design firm. Welcome, Darnell.
Thank you for having me.
We also have Nicole Steele. Nicole is the senior advisor on energy justice and workforce for the Solar Energy Technologies Office at DOE, the Department of Energy, and head of the National Community Solar Partnership. Nicole formerly was the founding executive director of Grid Alternatives in Mid-Atlantic region and policy director at the Alliance to Save Energy. And finally, we have Jonathan Rukow, interim executive director of Lake County Resources Initiative. That's a nonprofit working to promote economic, social, and ecological prosperity in Lake County, Oregon. So I'll turn it over now to Trenton. All right.
Thank you, Larry. I didn't know you were this good of a hype man. So I'm looking forward to the rest of the day. First, thank you for everyone for joining this morning. Really, really special day, the Vision Summit. I'm proud to be an IREC board member, but also proud to be a moderator for this panel with this really, really amazing group of people here and on the screen as well. And so without further ado, we're just going to get into it. I mean, I think you all had your coffee and your pastries and other kinds of things. So we're just going to get right into today's discussion and really also have an opportunity later on for you all to ask questions as well. So I'm going to start with Darnell on the screen. Can you tell me a little bit about your organization and the work that you do?
Sure. Thanks, Trenton, and thanks to everyone present. Good morning. My name is Darnell Johnson. I am the president of Urban Efficiency Group. We are a minority sustainability design firm located in Chicago, Illinois. Our focus is primarily to work to bring forward sustainable futures for those communities that are most vulnerable and that have traditionally been left behind is our specific focus. But we work with all communities across all landscapes and social identity groups. We're focused in the outlier communities of Chicago, the greater Chicagoland area. Currently, we're working with over 22 mayors that currently do not have aggressive or in some cases no sustainability strategies at all. We've reimagined what sustainability really means to be more than just about the planet, but saving the people and the planet. So how do we bring about strategies that are going to empower the human capital as well as address all of the environmental concerns that all of us are working every day to make better? I think that one of the biggest things is that we want to ensure that equity is centered in all of the work that we do. And so within that space, we focus on 6 priority areas, which is place, prosperity, connectivity, health and well-being, resource regeneration, and living infrastructure. And within all those 6 areas, it touches on literally everything that we talk about within our individual silos. I think that it's important that we begin to move away from siloed types of conversations and began to be more inclusive and more sustainable or systemic within our discussions around sustainability, because for a long time I've noticed that we have been very focused on planet and not necessarily making the connection between the things that are affecting the planet and making and how they are also affecting the human life. And so we're really excited about the work that we do. We work directly with the built environment, utility implementation, so the energy efficiency, weatherization, that space we play in as well. But I think that one of our most exciting things to date is just to design strategies that is inclusive of all of those things, raising awareness, increasing access, and making sure that those opportunities are affordable.
Thank you, Darnell. Nicole, you can give us a little view into the work that you're doing and your background as well.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Really excited to be here today. And, I think why I'm so excited to talk about what the Department of Energy is doing right now is because we need everyone in this room to be part of that conversation. We cannot pretend like we know everything. And I think the message that I really want to make sure that the industry hears, or the clean energy industry hears, is that we are listening. And we're building this plane in flight, and so we're building it all together. But we need you to tell us what you need in order to be successful. And so I think that's sort of the overarching sort of call to action of wanting to stay involved, get involved, and really, have conversations with us. Like, we're trying to figure out what to do with all of these dollars and how to meet our goals. And so we need everyone in this room part of that conversation. So what exactly are we doing and who am I? I'm at the Department of Energy. I lead the Workforce and Equitable Access team in the Solar Energy Technologies office. I've been there for about 1.5 years, and it's a brand new team. And so we've been lifting up the work of workforce and equitable access. While the DOE has been working in this space for a number of years, there hasn't been a really organized effort across technologies, across agencies. And so, we're being intentional around the conversations around not siloing. And so I love what Darnell was saying, not siloing to a specific technology, but how can we train the workforce of the future so that folks can have opportunities to work in all different types of technologies, all different types of companies, but really with sort of a craft or a trade focus. And so, why is that? So we're operating under what I like to say sort of like 3 grand visions. And so we all know the grand vision of this administration in terms of its clean energy goals. And so 100% building decarbonization by 2035, total economy by 2050. But we also have the Justice 40 goals, and ensuring that a minimum of the 40% of those benefits of this clean energy transition flows to disadvantaged communities. And so being incredibly intentional on how we're investing and how we're meeting those goals is incredibly important. And then last but not least, there is the goal of ensuring that employees in this transition have the opportunity to be part of a union if they so choose. And the reason that's so important is because we've flipped the conversation to really center the employee. It obviously has to be industry driven, this workforce. We have to know what skills industry needs, where workers need to be. The industry needs to be building a culture that people want to be part of. But, you know, I think we need to be incredibly thoughtful about how the employee is really centered in this conversation and how we're providing all of the services that they need to succeed, whether it be, you know, transportation to get to the job or mentorship to move through a career or, you know, the skills and the training necessary to, you know, really see themselves in this industry long term. And so that's really what we're doing at the Department of Energy right now. I do want to give a shout out to Sarah Wilder and Tamiwa Ofu. I'm going to screw up your last name, Tamiwa. I'm sorry. Ofu Lobby. Yes. So we have a great, small but mighty team in the solar office and workforce, but definitely find them and talk to them about opportunities to get involved and really push this conversation forward. So thanks, Trenton.
Thanks, Nicole. And Carla, I'm coming to you. And I just want to share something. For the last few years, I've had lots of conversation where people ask me, do you know Carla Walker Miller? I'm like, I've heard of her. I've never met her in person. Well, last few years, this may have been difficult to meet in person. But I'm thankful for IREC for finally giving me a chance to meet you. So can you please tell me a little bit about your organization and the work that you're doing?
Sure. Thank you for the, is my mic on? Okay. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. This is like Christmas to me, just being here. And I want to play off what you said about people seeing themselves in the industry, because I'm one of those people that had to fight my way into the clean energy industry. So one of the reasons our mantra is we change lives through clean energy is I know what this industry has done to change my life and the lives of the people that we invited, intentionally invited Black and brown people into a very, very, very white industry. And when people don't see themselves organically here already, it's easy to make the assumption that you're not welcome. So part of the way we change lives is, number one, we providing on-ramp and say you are welcome. You do have a space here. Number two is we provide well-paying jobs. We started a $15 an hour minimum wage in 2018, and next year we'll go to 19 to get to a $20. Right now it's $17.50. So we value people once they are here. And the third way is we try to help people see their space in a pack, not so that you can come in as a direct installer. And then there are 50 other things you can do once you understand and you want to be a part of this industry. So just helping people understand that not only are they welcome, as you said, we need people and we need all types of people. So one of the most important things that we do, well, let me tell you a little bit about my company. We're a 22-year-old clean energy company, started in large power equipment sales. I'm a civil engineer, and pivoted to energy efficiency programs, being an implementation contractor for utilities. After I almost lost my shirt during the recession, I managed to hold on to my shirt, but little else. And fell into clean energy and really blessed. Really, I can't tell you all what a blessing this industry has been for me and how important it is that we share and allow everyone to be a part of it. So we have about 225 people across 5 states, and we really do try to help people understand that you can start anywhere and you can go anywhere as a part of this industry. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, Jonathan, please tell us a little bit more about you and the work that you're doing.
Certainly. So, thank you for having me. My name is Jonathan Van Ruckel. Feeling very blessed to be here. Just have to say, coming from a land of less than 1 person per square mile, coming into the big city of Washington, D.C. is quite the adventure in itself. So thank you for having me. And it is really incredible what this space can bring. I do not have a background in energy or renewable energy, and find myself in this room today. And can't be more thankful for that. Lake County Resources Initiative, the reason I'm here, is a small nonprofit organization that operates in Lake County, Oregon. They were formed in 2002 in a response to the imminent closing of the last sawmill of a community that once hosted 7 of similar sawmills. The existential threat of that closure would have meant doom for the community and the people living there. This is a community that is rooted in agriculture, in the land that these people care for and work with. It is deeply rooted in the buckaroo and cowboy culture of the West, and in the logging culture of the West as well. Jim Walls, the founder and board chair of Lake County Resources Initiative, was asked to convene a stewardship group in 2002 to help save that mill. And he was successful in that mission by bringing together loggers and environmentalists to meet in the middle and come to an agreement on how to keep the mill operational and manage public lands. Over the remaining 2 decades, Jim and the former executive director, Nicholas Johnson, have been able to attract renewable energy development to the county at a remarkable rate, in response, again, to attract economic development and build back a social network, and retain that culture that exists there. Currently, we are about to launch a new 400 megawatt system in Lake County, which will put us on track to be producing 1 gigawatt of solar electricity by 2030, over 10,000 acres of solar electricity in the county itself. We will be Oregon's most renewable county, Lake County, in the next few years due to this progression in energy development. Where to go from there? I suppose I could say a little background on myself. I grew up in Minnesota and found myself in Oregon with Lake County Resources Initiative due to a service year opportunity, a AmeriCorps program called Resource Assistance for Rural Environments. And I can't stress enough the ability for us to find the youth and engage the youth with these service opportunities, as I found myself being engaged in that way, almost led along on a train, right, in a direction I wasn't certain of, but yet here I find myself today. And so I just want to give massive shout out to the RARE Resource Assistance for Rural Environments program, all AmeriCorps programs, and all service year opportunities that help this industry grow.
Thank you. Early one of the slides Larry Sherwood shared, we need almost 10 million new jobs, right? That's a lot. And so when we think about sort of what 2030 will be, Nicole, what will be different about the industry then than it is compared to what it is now?
10 million new people.
Besides the 10 million new people.
So, I think the message that I was talking about earlier, and ensuring that we are incredibly intentional about workforce recruitment. We're incredibly intentional about building an industry and a movement that people want to be part of. Intentional about providing the right resources for folks to succeed. And so, from that perspective, we have an incredible opportunity to ensure that the clean energy industry looks like all of America and can be, and really is accessible by everyone, and can get a job in this industry if they want one. So that's what I sort of see in the 2030 realm. But how do we actually get there is the next big question. And I think I was having a fantastic conversation yesterday with an organization based in, is it Iowa? I'm looking at Sarah. The Safer Foundation, Illinois, Iowa. And so it's this amazing organization that works directly with returning citizens, so former incarcerated individuals. We have not only an incarceration problem in this country, but there was a point that the group was making yesterday around how about half of that population has actually been sent out into the streets during the pandemic with absolutely no support. And so, people ask why we're seeing spikes in crime. Well, we're not providing the social services and the support that folks need to be successful in joining the economy. And so there's this, and so that's just like one small piece of the puzzle. There's incredible opportunity if we're thoughtful about how do we actually support people. And again, going back to centering people in this conversation. And so, the conversation sort of went in a bunch of different directions. but it's about coordination, and it's about talking to, you know, the folks that provide the right type of services that people need to succeed. And it's everything from housing. If you're unhoused, it's really hard to have a job. If you are hungry, it's really hard to have a job. If you don't have sustainable childcare or access to transportation, all of those pieces are incredibly difficult to be part of, the workforce. But we can coordinate a government that is investing in the clean energy transition and is investing in ensuring that people are truly centered in this conversation. And so, while this is just one segment of a population that, needs a job, needs good jobs, and could be supported through those wraparound services, that's what we need to be focusing on. And that's really where we can be leaning in with our resources at the federal government level of coordination across agencies. And so we were talking about the Department of Justice, the Department of Labor, the Department of Education, obviously DOE, EPA. So how do we create that one-stop shop to really center and support the employee? And that's what I can do, support everyone and give everyone an opportunity to join this transition.
Thank you for that. And Darnell, I want to bring you in as well and sort of get your perspective when you think about zooming out, a little more than 5 years from now. What does this workforce look like? What does this environment, particularly for workers and communities, look like? Just want to get your perspective.
Sure. Thanks, Trent. And I respect everything Nicole just said. I want to say, though, I think that many of our goals are more aspirational than they are actualized. We have a lot of aspirational goals about what the future will look like, whether it's 2030 or 2050. And I think that in order for those things to become actual versus aspirational, there has to be a change in the mental model and the power and systems, power and systems change at all of these levels, at the governmental, federal level, down to the state and local levels. We began to talk about things such as wraparound services and getting, different disenfranchised populations, diverse populations such as returning citizens. I'll use that for an example. But if we want to bring more returning citizens into this space, then there has to be a more intentional look at the policies and the rules and regulations around employing these people. When we began to look at putting individuals in, let's just start at the entry level, as Carla mentioned earlier, around the installer, just being an installer. Well, if I have an individual coming from prison who may have had a brush with the law because of drug possession or narcotic sales, not an aggressive, not, anything that was heinous crime, but made a bad choice, that person has done his time and is fully rehabilitated and trying to find his way through society. But because he has that felony on his record, most of your MSAs working with utilities say you cannot put a person with a felony in someone's home. So therefore, that is an immediate block for me as a Black man trying to hire other people that are coming from these different disparate populations. There has to be more an intentional look at the policies and the procedures and the legislation that governs these various things so that it does open up opportunities for us as employers and as business owners to be able to give these individuals that have been properly vetted, that have gone through the necessary channels of background checks, to be able to give them an opportunity. So that's why I say I think that much of what we're saying is more aspirational than it is actualized. When we begin to pull back the layers of what it means to truly be equitable and to make the changes that we're all talking about around 2030, we began to see that it's a much more daunting task than what we initially thought that it would be. And once we began to run into those roadblocks is where we began to see the capitulation from being so equity centered to being more about expedience. We can no longer afford to compromise equity for expedience. These things take time. It means that we have to have intentionality and that we have to be truly vested in the processes that's needed to change the power and system structures that are in place and the mental models, the thought processes that govern these various policies at all levels to ensure that we can open up the doors to be able to onboard these new emerging populations, these disenfranchised populations of folks. This is nothing different than what we've seen historically. going all the way back to, if we look back to, the special field order number 15, when there was over 400,000 acres of land that was given, that was confiscated by General Sherman, that was going to be given to the freed slaves. There was resistance. Change does not come without challenge. And I think that we have to be ready for that. And so if that's something that we want to see by 2030, which is only 8 years, not even 8 years into the future, I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
Trenton, do you mind if I just piggyback?
Absolutely. That's coming to you next, but go right ahead.
Yeah, something that Darnell mentioned is the policies, the fact that systemic change requires changes in policies. And one of the things that we did, one of the most important decisions we made was in 2018, we did what in Detroit, there was a movement to ban the box, which I didn't understand at the time that I started looking at it. But it is when a company interviews someone, do you ask during the first interview if you are convicted, if you have a felony conviction? And forever in this country, that's on the application. And the just grassroots movement said, why are you asking that during the first interview? And as we explored it, then we removed that question on the first interview. And the way I explain it now, years later, is if I'm not interested in you during that interview, whether you've been convicted of a felony is none of my business, right? I'm not looking at you to hire you anyway. The second interview, if I am, then we can have a conversation. And the difference between whether that felony conviction was a weed conviction at 20 or 6 bodies buried in your mother's basement, those are two totally different conversations. And it allows us to really explore, is this something that would keep this person from being successful and serving with honor in this job? And just that simple thing has really made a difference in who we review, who we hire on our team. But if that one change was made nationally, it would make so much difference to the opportunities of formerly incarcerated citizens.
And so I want to come back to you. Something that I heard both you and Darnell mention was this word intentional, being intentional about it. From your standpoint, if we're to think about sort of how we realize real true equity within sort of our climate goals, where does intentionality fit in? And can you just sort of describe from your perspective, how do we do it and what's the right way to go about it?
So I'm going to start with the reason you've heard about me is I felt like a voice crying out in the wilderness when it comes to energy and equity. The first time I ever heard the word equity said in a business meeting with white people, I have to tell you all, I felt tears. I literally had to hold back tears because it had been so hard just to talk about diversity and inclusion. And someone actually said the word equity, and I'm like, oh my God. So it's been a long road to get to have this conversation. And intentionality requires that we go from having the conversation. It's like, okay, we all know that there's an issue here. We all agree that equity is important, to things like the governor of Michigan, the My Healthy Climate, has equity in it 17 times. The word equity is in the clean energy program 17 times. I can't tell you how much intentionality it took to have it in there. And now the intentionality allows us to say, okay, we know equity does not come without planning, but more importantly, without a budget. So now we can say, where is your equity budget? Because if there's no budget for equity, you are not serious about it. Because we're talking about reaching people who have never been fully engaged in this industry. So not only is it going to require a budget, it's going to require more money than what it requires to hire just someone who's already familiar with the industry. So now we can have those conversations about who's paying for equity, how much, how important is it for you, and how innovative can we be in really driving and creating an equitable environment.
Trenton,
Yes.
really quickly, I think that in addition to that about, the budget, I think Carla's 1,000% on spot, right? If we don't have money invested into the equity, then how do we ever see that? But I think that even preceding that whole budget conversation is addressing our unconscious biases. Our unconscious biases are the things that are preventing us from being able to value. I've always said you can always tell what's important to a person by looking at their checkbook and looking at their planner. Where they spend their time and where they spend their money is what's important to them, right? And so before we can get folks to start investing budgets, dollars into equity, we have to begin to look at our own unconscious biases that ultimately drives our decisions on how policies, how budgets, and how protocols are developed and implemented within our various organizations. And so I agree that budgets are tremendously important. I think that once we get to the budget portion, even looking at how much, if the budgets that are being allocated, are they equitable, across the landscape? Are we putting the crumbs that are left in the budget into equity, or are we putting a fair share of the resources that are allocated into equity as well? Because we can put a very marginalized budget in place and say this is equity, look at what we've done, and then we want to celebrate incrementalism, and that doesn't work either. We have to make sure that the things that we're investing in, that there's parity across the landscape to show that we are truly invested in this thing that we are calling equity.
And I'll jump in as the federal government with lots of money. So I brought up Justice 40 earlier, and this is a whole of government approach, and so it's not just clean energy transition. But so I wanted to really make that super clear that there is I think aspiration, goal, etc. Directive is probably the better word. There is a directive of the whole of government right now to direct our funding to ensure that a minimum of 40% of our investments are impacting what the administration refers to as disadvantaged communities. And so that's a huge definition of all different types of populations that have been historically excluded. And so we've, took the last year and a half trying to figure out, okay, well, how do you measure that? What are we actually talking about? And I think we've made pretty good progress in at least understanding what we're talking about here. And so we want to ensure, the Justice 40 initiative really wants to ensure that there's not only access, but to the benefits of clean energy, but also energy burdens are driven down, pollution impacts are driven down. Workforce is a major component of the Justice 40 initiative in terms of both workers and entrepreneurs. And so those are two major priorities of Justice 40. I can go on, but I think wealth building and community ownership is a major point of it as well. And so, this has sort of been set as a frame and a definition across the whole of government of where we're investing. And so I think one thing that I can say that this current administration is really putting their money where their mouth is. And then I will also say that the workforce team in the Solar Energy Technologies Office currently has a funding opportunity right now called Advancing Equity Through Workforce Partnerships. And so our funding opportunity for this cycle is exclusively focused on how do you lift up equity? How do you bring people together that maybe haven't worked together in the past, but leveraging sort of their strengths and infrastructure that they've developed to the table and ensure that we're infusing those principles of Justice 40 into everything that those partners do. And so I'll leave it at that because I see the time card waving.
Yeah, fantastic conversation so far, and to enter in this space, I've told you all how Lake County is producing some of Oregon's most clean energy. What I haven't told you is that the populations that live there are still relying on bulk fuels. We still burn kerosene oil to heat our homes, and we still burn wood. And so this is a problem for us, right? So we have this disparity where we're saying, okay, we're producing all this clean energy, yet we're not benefiting directly from that production, and we're still reliant on these other types of fuel sources. So it gets at this idea of when I look to develop a new program, and luckily I feel very fortunate we have our partners at Energy Trust of Oregon who have given us this sole source contract to work within the community, where I myself go up in attics and look to see what the R value is of this insulation, and I check to see how weatherized these homes are. We're going out, we're doing home energy assessments, right? We're developing programs that are putting money back into the community so we can get to a point where we fuel switch. We can get to a point where people on the ground actually realize the benefit of this idea of clean energy. I think there's a very difficult conversation to be had about where we use the words clean energy in context with energy efficiency. The dollars spent, I believe, on energy efficiency and improving quality of life for people are going to go much further right now than they will if we continue to grow in these massive or large-scale solar facilities such as Lake County has invested in and allowed investors to come in and produce. And so just to piggyback off on all the fantastic points people are making, it is really, the proof is in the pudding, right? Where if we can put money back into the homes and back into the communities through energy efficiency improvements first, and then come back and produce our clean energy on top of that, we will be in a better space.
Amen.
At the same time.
Well, I think this concludes sort of the first part of our conversation, but now we're going to open it up for those of you in the audience, both here in person, but also online, I believe, as well. So if you have any questions, I think we have a mic that is here.
Right. Yeah. First of all, I just want to interject here. What a great panel. Can I hear a round of applause? And leave it to IREC to be the only organization that can bring you a cowboy buckaroo and a moderator with as colorful socks as Trenton. How about that? Check those babies out. All right. At this time, we're going to take a few questions from the audience. And as you know, today we have both virtual and in-person attendees. So let me give you a little guidance on how we're going to handle the Q&A. You see, we already have our first person up at the mic. For those of you in here, just line up at that mic. We only have a few minutes for this first segment. But for those of you participating virtually, there is a Q&A tab to the right of the live stream window where you can drop your questions. You can also use this feature to upvote questions that you are interested in. We'll take the top voted questions from the virtual attendees, and an IREC staff person will ask those questions in the room. So at this point, let's go to our first questioner.
First off, thank you, everyone. This is a great event. I know you said it's like Christmas. It's actually like Christmas, New Year, and my birthday here all in one. So this is great for everyone. So I have a question for you. How important do you feel is a childhood education part of this? Because we're working on that. That's our big thing, and my passion is we're developing curriculum for children to make this fun. And how do you feel like that could impact the communities by going in and educating the kids at a young age? That's our future workforce, right? That's the group that's going to be working 5, 10, 15 years. So I believe, and I feel the same way, that the education part is super important to make it cool and fun and interesting, right? So that's what, my company's Earthright Mid-Atlantic, we're actually working on that right now. But how important do you feel that is in this whole conversation?
So, I think everyone knows that that's really, really important. And the good thing about where we are right now is everyone needs to be educated. So I am really passionate about childhood education. I am just as passionate about the 52-year-old automotive worker who has been assembling powertrains forever and is going to be, her job is not going to be here, right, at some point because the world is changing. So I think that we can all apply the things that the groups that we're most passionate about. There's space in every single place. And as far as what you're saying about childhood, there's a reason that children don't smoke. There's a reason that little kids are saying, you're going to die for black lives. It's because we taught them, right? And they may make that decision later, but very few of them. And it's going to be based on, they're going to have the knowledge. So always educating children is always foundational to when you're trying to create systems change.
Yeah, and I 100% agree. I think it was Jonathan who said that he was part of an AmeriCorps program. Absolutely. I myself was also an AmeriCorps alum, or I should say I am an AmeriCorps alum. And I think organizations like that, organizations like Youth Build, can be incredibly valuable to really make people get a taste or create an opportunity for people to have a taste of what it's like to be in this industry and what it's like to have a job in this space. And it also is an opportunity for us to create strong pre-apprenticeship programs and connect directly with apprenticeship programs and longer term training. And so, thinking about it from like a holistic picture of like, did I learn how to recycle when I was in second grade? Did I learn what solar energy was when I was in second grade? And then actually creating the pathways through STEM education and core learning opportunities to then transition into the right career. And so the other thing I would just add to that is investment in like technical training, VOTEC, and in your high schools as an opportunity and a very sort of a respectable pathway, because I feel like we have not, as a society, done a great job of really lifting up those careers as a incredible opportunity for most people to join. And so I think we need to be shifting that conversation, as well as VOTEC and the technical trades are an incredibly value and respected job in the future.
Yeah, and to piggyback off that, I think in one of the earlier slides, it seemed that HVAC and energy efficiency, we're going to require more of those jobs than we will in any other sector of the clean energy environment. And so that is a crucial part, and we should be looking to that through this lens of, let's get out and instill a sense of service in our youth, instill a sense that they can get out of the rat race. They don't need to be in this perpetual push towards some pathway that they think is predetermined for them. That is what a service year, and I'm going to plug Brent Cossack, Service Year Alliance, he's on the chat, has tremendous network and opportunities for all avenues of clean energy work in the service area. Those are the groups and communities we need to be engaging with our youth. I coach a youth boys soccer team, and that youth team, they need all the direction they can get in every walk of life they can get. And it starts with us, explain to them what their opportunities are. If we don't do that, then I believe that it's going to be difficult for them to find a path that's right.
Trenton, I want to jump in really quickly. I know we're pressed on time, but I definitely want to plug this. We in Chicago, in partnership with the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, CETA, and the Building Performance Institute, along with District 205 and my organization, we've launched a program called the Green Generation. This is the second year that's been in this summer was the second summer that we did it. We start students when they are rising sophomores. It is a 3-year program. They receive 6 BPI certifications. So Larry Zarka and his team, shout out to them. I think Larry's in the audience for them partnering with us on BPI. We have students that have gone through the BPI certification, and they are literally, no hyperbole, the youngest students in the country that hold BPI certifications, securing those certifications at the age of 15. They go on and we not only do we teach them about building performance, but we also teach them about sustainability and advocacy. We teach them about power mapping. We teach them about power sharing targets. And all of those things are ultimate, and leadership is key. All of those things are very important for students to be able to acquire at a young age. So as they begin to transition, if after high school they're not going to college, those students now have the certifications needed to enter directly into the clean energy economy. And these are things that are happening right now. As a matter of fact, the Department of Energy did a success story on us, and I'm going to drop the link to that article in the chat.
Thank you, Darnell. All right, next question.
It's really great to hear about the focus.
Bring the mic down for yourself. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm really happy to hear about the focus on unhoused people and people exiting the justice system. My question is really around what can be done and what are you guys thinking about in making this sustainable so that it survives administrative changes and not just something that we're able to focus on right now, but might not be able to provide resources to in the future.
Things like this just give me hope. There's no turning back. Just like we didn't stop when we withdrew from the Paris Climate Accords, we know better. So We know that this is what has to be done. And one of the reasons I'm so excited about this is we have people here who know how to do workforce development. We're not counting on just clean energy people and technical people to do this. And one of the things that I'm most fearful of is that we have a lot of solutions in silos. We're training and we're changing in the tens and the 50s and the hundreds. And we need to be doing it in the thousands and the 5,000 and the 10,000. So what we're missing to me is adopting those best practices we're talking about and scaling. How do we stop owning our little piece of success and scale so that everyone has the best practices and they're always evolving?
Thank you. Mhm.
And I'll just add, and it's something that I said earlier around just coordinating across agencies, federal agencies, and so understanding all of the ones that need to be at the table. Like you always think of Department of Labor and Department of Education. Obviously, we should be talking about to them around workforce, but we should also be talking to HUD, and we should be talking to the Department of Justice, and we should be talking to EPA and everyone else in between. And so really starting those conversations, establishing long-term MOUs and investing right now. And, like Carla said, like we're not turning this train back. It's moving forward. And so we're excited about making big investments right now.
All right, 2 more questions, and then we're going to have to move to our breakout sessions. Go ahead.
Excellent. Thanks a lot. Mike Conway from Stacks and Jewels, Workforce Development Organization. So yeah, the comments like Carla talking about like the, I would say perceived extra cost of raising someone up from a certain level who hasn't had access. My point there is that I'm not sure it is extra when you look at like lifetime investment that's happening within different communities. But my question is around funding and scaling. And so as an organization, we get a lot of pressure around like looking at impact investing models or what I would describe as like a clawback after employment or a performance-based funding models. And so that's my question is just around like your thoughts around that, especially within the conversation around equity.
So you're right. If you look at first cost, it is going to cost more because just engaging people who have not historically been engaged takes more effort. We've been doing it. We go on to more than 20,000 homes a year, and it's much easier for us to engage middle-class suburban family than a family in an underserved community. So first cost is more, but you're absolutely right. It's just like clean energy versus fossil fuels. Life cycle costs and non-monetary impacts over time, you can't even compare the benefits. So I don't remember what the second half of your question was. So I'm sorry.
All right, next question.
Awesome. Good morning, Paul Douglas, president of the JPI Group. We've been doing workforce development for the past decade, but I always admit that I'm relatively new to the clean energy sector. The best practice that we've seen is sometimes workforce development has a negative connotation as low-level jobs. We work with a lot of CEOs across the country. Our advice always is we need to fill weatherization, field tech jobs. What are we doing to fill the program manager, executive?
That's right.
See change. We can fill 10,000 field techs. We won't get where we need to get to. So my question is, what steps are we taking with fundings available for VPs, program managers? Because those are the folks that will be doing the interviewing. And that's what makes it the decision. Thank you guys in advance for your answer.
I see Darnell shaking his head. Darnell, anything you want to say?
Absolutely. I can't. I'm so excited that the gentleman asked that question because that's been one of my conversations for years is where are we at on making sure that the analysts, the program managers, the program administrators, the folks that are not in the field are actually being trained and scaled to be able to fill these jobs as well. And one of the things that I found is that as much as there is a disproportionate representation within the field workers, there's even a greater disproportionate representation of folks that are actually in the office. And so I think that when we're talking about how do we change that dynamic, one of our greatest assets is sitting on the panel with you all right now, and that's through Carla Walker Miller and the work that she's doing in Walker Miller. to be able to demonstrate how you take a company and be able to scale it and to be truly diverse and to be truly equitable in their approach. It starts with those by empowering, implementers such as Carla Walker Miller and Walker Miller Energy. That's where the change begins to shift. If we continue to see the same implementers getting the prime contracts over and over again, you will continue to see less diversity within these spaces. So that goes again to us talking about how do we diversify the workforce. It first has to be, you have to see diversification within the prime contractor space. You have to see diversification within the implementer space, because once you see diversification happen there, you will then begin to see diversification happen outside of just your field workers and beginning to infiltrate the spaces of analysts and program managers, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that there needs to be more intentionality. And that goes back to, again, conversations that are happening at our legislative levels of state and county governments, right? Of saying, hey, how do we begin to bring in our different, the different state the state entities to the conversation to say, why aren't we seeing more equity within the contracting of giving the allocations of prime contracts? If we begin to pull the layers back, you'll notice that you don't have a lot of diversity at the prime level. You have more diversity at the sub level, but not at the prime level. And the prime level are the individuals that are empowered to be able to make those hiring decisions that you will most likely not see being made if that prime contractor is not a person that is either diverse or that has really bought into diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Thank you, Darnell.
I'll pay you later, Darnell.
No worries.
Well, we've run out of time, unfortunately, because this is a great panel, isn't it? Tremendous. Please thank them. All right, we're going to switch now into our breakout sessions. These are facilitated sessions. For those of you who are in the room right now, stay at your table. You can stand for just a minute, if you wish, and shake it out, but don't move out of your places, okay? I talk about compliance, very important. And then now you can be seated, yeah. Okay, and then for those of you attending virtually, you'll join a breakout room with the other virtual participants. To access your virtual breakout room, please go to the homepage of the event app and click on the Breakout Rooms button. This will bring you to the breakout room page and with guidance on which breakout room you should join based on upon your last name. Additionally, when I conclude, you'll see in the event app the guidance for joining the breakout rooms. So you have an assigned facilitator for this. We'll take about 10 minutes or so and then come back to our regular session, whole session. Again, thanks very much to our panel, keynote panel today.